Hey, what's up everybody? Cat Kings here again for another fantastic and exciting video. This video is going to be extremely subjective, so you'll have to forgive me if I don't do the best on it, right? I could be completely wrong with everything I say, and if I am, please forgive me, please correct it, but this is going to be my personal Baki tier list, and again, it could be completely wrong. So, let's go ahead and start off and look for garbage people. Punching Bag gets one-shotted by Baki. Yes, Baki is strong, but all the Kaios got shit on, and when he threw a punch at this other Kaio Punching Bag, this dude caught his punch. So obviously not that strong. You got another Punching Bag who got fucked up by the King of Simps, Ollie Jr. So obviously not that strong at all. Get rid of some more nobodies in here. Nobodies. Just all around. So that's what we're trying to do. Guys who really were just there to make others look good. Let's see. Let's go through the list. Yeah, God, actually quite a bit of them that are just really completely pathetic. So, and this is going to be pretty unpopular, but 13-year-old Baki was not strong at all. If we're looking at him, we're talking at the beginning. Actually, I'm going to put, no, I know, but the reason is because if you look at all these characters to fight on in the tournament later, even if they fight Baki and do even just decent against the current versions of Baki that you see, they still, Baki gets substantially stronger as he goes on. There's a fight with Gaia. There's a fight with Hanma in the beginning of the series. There's a fight with Jack Hanma later on. And then of that, there's also when he makes love to Kozue, where he becomes more powerful. And let's take, for example, that Kozue thing before he becomes more powerful, right? Yanagi wrecked Baki even when he had Shibukawa help him. So if we're also looking at that by that argument, everybody pre-tournament, I'm just going to have to say for the most part, it's kind of hot garbage. Just because if we scale from Baki, then they're not really all that strong. Because we have to assume that Baki was that tournament champion, and so therefore we can look at Baki and we can look at, well, he got wrecked by Yanagi, so everybody's going to be below Yanagi as far as the pre-tournament, especially the people who have lost to Baki. So this version of Gaia, of course, also just down there. There's actually quite a few. If you're pre-tournament, it's bound to happen, right? So this is, so Motobe with prep time is a complete meme, and we'll get back to that. But if this is Kura Hashinogi when he fought against Doyle, then I'm going to say, well, he was hinted at as being substantially stronger, but here's another one. Here's more tournaments. Let me just double check and look through and get rid of all the tournament guys. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, Jack Hanma in the tournament. I don't even recognize that guy, so forgive me for not remembering. So, Baki is obviously going to be above all these people. And the reason I have these Kaios all here in the very weak tier is just because they're straight garbage. They don't do good. They literally get fucking humiliated easily. Not even a challenge. There's no hint at them. They're just there to make the other characters look good, right? Don't even recognize this dude. And this is Motobe. If he's in the tournament without his weapons, he's straight garbage. The worst of them all. He's the worst of them all. So, okay, now it's going to be a little bit more tricky, right? Oh, here's him too. He's also going to get in there. I do remember Alexander fucked up Hanayama, if I remember. If this is early Hanayama, I'm assuming, I can't tell really on the art style. I'm just going to put him also down there. And I have Baki up here, obviously, just because he would be stronger than all of them since he is the underground champion. So Doppo becomes a little bit tricky too. I don't actually recognize these two things. I guess this is before he got murked by Yujiro. I'm going to assume this is drunk Doppo. I'm just going to assume, right? This might be Doppo when he fights later on. But if we're talking prime Doppo, there's a lot of talk, but he fucking breaks Yuichiro's jaw in one hit. Honestly, God bless. I mean, he even, the writing is inconsistent because they say he gets stronger, so it's inconsistent. But if we're going based off his performance against Yujiro and just how well he did and how far he pushed him, I would have to put him almost in S tier, legendary, just because of what he did to Yuichiro by breaking his jaw. Prime Dopo is fucking crazy. To be honest, I don't know how you can argue against that. And just, again, his performance against Yujiro. Let's see. Baba Booey. This looks like an older version of Hanma, and if it is, then you're gonna, you already know you're gonna go down there. Okay, so let's see. This was Dopo when... So, I would say he's decent because he still lost the King of Simps, Ollie Jr., and later on when he fights Ollie Jr., he admits, hey, look, you won that fight. And he just straight up admits it. And then that, in turn, I'm going to put Ollie Jr. in situational. I think he's great. And the reason situational is because if under sports rules, they've all admitted, hey, you're great at fighting that, but it's under a fight to the death. He's not so prepared for that, and so that's something that everybody in Baki seems to understand. And then later on as well, Baki said, speaking of situational, Baki says, if any of his punches landed on me, that would have been it. That would have been game over. So, and we can see how strong he hits, because Jack Hanma is supposed to, known as a tank. And this was before training and getting all the buffs that Ollie Jr. did later down the line when he was going to fight Baki. Even before all those buffs, Ollie Jr., when he hit Jack, he was rocking him pretty bad, dropped him to one knee, something that the likes of Sikorsky, who's supposed to be a powerhouse, a rough fighter, couldn't do. And that in turn brings me to Sikorsky. Obviously he's going to be stronger than these tournament guys, but he's kind of a fucking joke. He doesn't really win any significant fights against any meaningful members. He just fights punching bags. I don't think anybody's going to argue against that. Gaia for the tournament arc, I'm going to just put him, or for the prison arc, I'm just going to put him as neither weak or strong. You could argue maybe even decent or situational depending on the environment, but really, he doesn't show anything of significance. He fights Sikorsky, so we don't know how strong he actually gets at that point. And even later on in the series, when he fights people like Masashi, for example, Masashi Miyamoto, he does not do good. And when he fights his trainer, Motobe, he does not do good. There's no real indication that he's got any better. So I'm just going to put him not weak, neither strong for now. And same for this guy. He doesn't really show much of anything. He just gets thrashed by Dorian. Yeah, he cuts off his ear, which is cool and all that. But then he almost gets killed, and Dopo saves him and Katsumi, and then he gets wrecked by Dorian down in his bunker. It's not really a competitive fight at all. He gets put under hypnosis as well. So, yeah, it is what it is on that one. So I don't know which version of Dopo this is. I assume this is the one who fights Yujiro, and I'm sorry if I'm wrong. But again, if you're talking Prime Dopo, bro, you have to put him up there just because of how fucking good he did. And then of all the statements that were made about him. And then again, against Yuichiro, what he did with one shot breaking his jaw, that's no small feat. I mean, for example, speaking to durability, if you look at Yujiro, when he got hit by Hanayama later on in the story of Baki, and he bled a little bit from his nose, that's considered a huge feat, but he definitely didn't get his nose broken or anything, and certainly didn't get his jaw broken from getting hit full force by Hanayama. So that speaks to the power that Dopo has. And when Dopo was hitting Yujiro, Yujiro was feeling it. He was really feeling it. So this, of course, is prep Motobe, but to what extent, I don't know. This looks like it's fight against Yanagi. But we're just going to pretend Meme Tabe, right? We're just going to pretend. And honestly, you have to either put him in Legendary or Grandmaster. I'm not going to put him right here because it's shown that he doesn't really fight with Yujiro. You could put him, this is debatable, to be honest. If I had to put him, I'd put him at the bottom of Legendary, or I'd put him at the very top of Grandmaster. And the only thing that holds him back, really, is when he beat Musashi Miyamoto, that was great, but Miyamoto Musashi himself said, he was holding back heavily. It was more like playing for him than anything. And he doesn't exactly try to confront Yujiro. And even with the whole thing with Baki, when he appears behind him, it's like he admits, hey, you read the situation that, this wasn't a for real life or death thing. And it's kind of hinted at that, yeah, that's good for Motobe, but that Baki might have, things might have been different had he actually had done something. So that's where I stand on that. And then, so I know that Ryu Kaio got fucked up, but he did train Retsu, and he was respected by Retsu and looked at as Retsu's master. And honestly, there's a lot of people get fucked up. And again, back to the whole thing with Hanayama punching Yujiro and then getting one-shotted, or all the times Baki has got one-shotted. Forgive me, sinuses are bad this whole month. So, there's been plenty of people get one-shotted by Yujiro or just overall fucked up. If I had to put him somewhere, I would say situational. It's really not clear how strong he is, unfortunately. And Yujiro makes the point of, hey, you train on a lot of stuff, but don't really train practical fighting. But I think he's a real unknown factor because he had the likes of Dorian and Retsu training under him, and Retsu was extremely aggressive. So it goes without saying you'd have to use somebody who's stronger than Retsu would have to restrain him during that time. And obviously Retsu wasn't as strong as he is now back then. But it's just to say I would probably be Ryu Kaio. It's definitely not going to be those punching bags restraining him. You saw that Retsu broke out of the cell he was in easily and fucked them all up without getting a scratch. So it's probably Ryu Kaio that restrained him. So, I want to put him weak, level 6-9 punching bag. He fights, a heavily poisoned Baki who's deathly ill. And he does good up until the poison gets negated. So he did better than the other punching bags for sure. Let's see. This is Doppo from the Prisoner arc. I'm also going to put him at decent. There was no real significant increase between then and later on that would hint at me that he did great by any means. He had a fight with Dorian. He ends up beating Dorian once, but the thing is that anytime, anywhere, any place thing. So he gets his hand chopped off in the first fight and has to hit Dorian and has to run away. And then in the last fight that they have, Dorian hits him with an explosion in his hand, one-shots him, and finishes him off in one hit. He does great against Dorian and fights him. And Dorian is one of the stronger prisoners and definitely one of the smarter prisoners. Dorian multiple times walked up in the club, of the fighters where there'd be multiple fighters and would take them on, and none of the other prisoners could do that. Certainly not prisoners like Hector Doyle or Sikorsky. For sure, they would not be able to get away with the shit Dorian was getting away with. Which brings me to my next thing. I'd say Dorian is very situational depending on who he's fighting. Doppo, it just so happened that Doppo had such a good fighting spirit that the hypnosis didn't really make any difference. But we can see if other opponents, I don't even remember that dude's name that he fought. I'm sorry, I don't. I'm sure it will come to me later, but Dorian has really good hypnosis. And when he's compared directly, when a rock's being thrown directly to Katsumi, he shows that he does so much better when Doppo throws a rock at both of them. So, again, Tiger Hunter, I don't really see any significance between all those forms. And this one might be kind of controversial for some people. Forgive me. But I'd actually have to put him almost, really at extremely dangerous. And I know what some people are thinking, like, how can he be better? But it's his whole oxygen thing. He fights, he has the way of the void, he has the bend of technique, he's an expert at multiple weapons, and he was able to fuck up Doyle, for example, who did really good against Biscuit Oliva, for example. Blinded Doyle, almost killed him, was going to kill him easily. Doyle got maybe a punch in. That's really about it on him. Fucked up Baki. He fucked up Baki, for example. Fucked up Goki Shibukawa multiple times. And he got beat by a Prep Motobe, but Prep Motobe is always going to be great. And like I said, his abilities were amazing. So the way of the void definitely helped. I know it's a contentious point, but just you have to look at the level of quality competition he fought. And his history of Goki Shibukawa, who also ended up getting fucked up multiple times in the past. And also, you have to compare what Goki was able to do. And I know styles make fights. That's definitely important. But you have to look at how Goki sort of like big brothered Biscuit Oliva multiple times. So that's no laughing matter for sure. And again, styles make fights. But just a good point that Goki is not a chump by any means and fought really well, in multiple fights. And like I said, he big brothered Biscuit Oliva. I just think he's really strong. And again, this is just my personal tier list. If you disagree, that's fine. Okay, so Kurihashi Nogi, I don't know what version this is. I'm assuming this is newer. If I have to put him, I'm going to put weak. Both versions. I know they say he gets stronger, but he doesn't really show any significance. I don't even know I think this guy's name is Kurihashi. I don't really know. He shows a fight against Hector Doyle and hits him pretty hard, but ends up losing. Hector Doyle not really being all that strong of a guy himself. Especially later on when he starts losing his eyesight and stuff. I know he says he gets stronger, but again, Hector Doyle not being the strongest prisoner, styles make fights. And when we compare what happens immediately afterwards, where he gets bodied by Retsu, it's just, there's no way you're going to say Shinogi is up there. And then for Doyle, you can look at him as well. He did great against Biscuit Oliva, but the problem is, I think there's narrative inconsistencies with the writers. It seems like everybody except for Dorian, it seems to every one of the other prisoners went from being introduced super strong to then getting progressively more and more bodied until it was like one-sided fights. So I'm going to say he's neither weak nor strong. He did really good against Biscuit Oliva, but then he lost, I think a lot of reasons he lost, at least you can give him some leeways, because he lost sight in one eye and then he lost sight in both eyes. So it's not like, and Biscuit Oliva even makes a comment like, hey, I was excited to try to capture you, but now look at you. It's almost pathetic. And that's from Biscuit Oliva, bam, back, puts him in a bear hug and rip to my boy. So, let's go ahead and move on. This guy, Suedo, he lands one hit. Extremely weak. He's not really important by any means. He lands one hit on Dorian. That's about it. I mean, I don't know how he'd fare against the Kaios. You can maybe put him at the top of extremely weak. I'm not really having this organized, but I would put him maybe at the top of extremely weak. I don't see him beating even Sikorsky. He's shown nothing like that. He's just a side character of a side character. In his fights that he has had, he does not win. So that's all you can say, really. And then, so obviously we have Kakukayo. If we're going all the way off on later on in the series, he's definitely not competing with people like Pickle, for example. There's just no way. I would put him in the level of Grandmaster. He's definitely good. He got the Shaori, but even with people like Miyamoto Musashi, they can counter that. And Retsu obviously is not going to be as strong as Kakukayo, but he did learn more and more techniques and get more and more buffs as the series went on. So I'm going to put him in Grandmaster level just because of how he did against Yujiro. But Yujiro seems to be kind of like the Beerus of Baki. What I mean is, it's like, like how every time you think Baki's getting close to Yujiro, it just seems like without, it's an unspoken agreement that Yujiro is stronger than what we expect. In Dragon Ball Super, Beerus was shown to be, at first it was like Super Saiyan God was Beerus was close to using 70% of his power. But then that was retconned, and it was like, okay, no, now Super Saiyan Blue might challenge me. Then it was like, okay, Kaioken times Storm with Super Saiyan Blue really scared Beerus. And then it went on and on and on and on and on, and it keeps going on. And it's just an understood rule that no matter how strong Goku and company gets, they'll never be able to surpass Beerus, even if the narrative kind of heavily implies it. So you get what I'm saying. Even though he fought Yujiro at that time, it's hard to say how well he did. But then there's also the point of the Shaori, right? Yujiro could have used that, and instead Yujiro resorted to just pure brute force. So it's not like Yujiro was going all out and using all his techniques against Kakukayo. It was still a good fight, but again, Yujiro didn't really use all the techniques. He just used pure force, really. So we're getting on to some pretty contentious points here. Sorry, excuse me. Biscuit Oliva, okay. He's going in extremely strong. And this would have been a cool fight to see them fight when they were younger. I'm going to put them two in extremely strong territory. And if you see their encounter, when Yujiro tries to kick Biscuit Oliva, he just blocks it and, moves on with his day. And so that fight looks like it would have been a lot closer than I think people would have understood or believed. So, next one. Okay, now if this is current day Yujiro, then you already know he's just going to be on top. There's no question about it. If we're going by the prisoner arc, or if we want to say modern, let's just say we want to say modern Hanayama, if we want to say, then, well, from the picture it looks like prison arc. And if we're going by that, then I don't know. He kind of fucked up Baki pre-Kozue, and even after when he encountered Yanagi and Sikorsky, they didn't want any piece of Hanayama. So he's definitely going to be above the prisoners substantially. I'm going to put him... Actually, I would... Again, it's situational. I'd put him ahead of Yanagi in the extremely dangerous category. Hanayama would have fucked up any of the other prisoners. And Spec I would put as well up there. He kind of bodied and thrashed around Baki when they first met. It wasn't even really a challenge. And it's a damn shame that we couldn't see more Spec, but we saw him fight Hanayama, and that was a really good fight. And he was an intelligent fighter and he used his environment to his advantage, using guns and shit. Jaku Kai. Okay, where does this dude go? Just based on pure sheer grit and his ability to adapt, I'm going to put him in situational. Depending on who he fights, he's really clever and cunning. And he's got plenty of techniques to help him win in a fight. But he's definitely not strong. He can put up a decent fight. He's not going to go down without a fight against people like, up in here, this category. But he's not going to win. We already know that. Retsu is a Kyle for a reason. He is extremely good. And I'm going to put him right here if we're going by the tournament saga. And I'm going to put him right at the tippy top. Just based on feats alone, look what he did. I know Dorian was, injured and all that, but he still one-shot Dorian. It's worth mentioning. And he was confident fighting Dorian. It just didn't fight at the end just simply because Dorian was a fellow Kaio. When Dorian fought a lot of the people, like for example Katsumi, wrecked Katsumi twice in a row, and then wrecked that other punching bag. I don't remember his name, but he was also from Shinshinkai. Dorian ended up wrecking everybody, including like Doppo and stuff. And yeah, he lost to Doppo once, but he beat him twice. And through all that, when he encountered Vetsu, it was extremely even. In the brief encounters they did have, he couldn't do the same thing he did to him that he could do to all the other fighters he was encountering. So I'm going to put Vetsu extremely dangerous. Dude's got 4,000 years of Chinese martial arts, you know. That the meme you already know. And he's the best waifu, really. So Jack Hanma, fuck. This is really contentious. I don't know. God. I would say if we were talking about current Jack Hanma, he's supposed to be stronger. He's got multiple buffs. And he's really good against Pickle. But if we're just talking about, it's hard to say. I don't know which version of Jack that's supposed to be. It looks like the version that was in the newer Baki. The prison battle arc was in part 2 of the prisoner arc. I don't know. Okay, so if we're just going off of what we understand so far, I would put that Biscuit Oliva would be above him. If we're just going off of the prisoner arc and stuff like that. And the main reason I'd say that is because as far as durability, even though Jack can tank shots, he got hit by people like Muhammad Ali Jr. and dropped on his knee. He doesn't really have a lot of technique. His knowledge is not nearly as good as Oliva's. Oliva has that entire library of knowledge. So Oliva is a lot more intelligent. In Oliva's fight with Baki, he cited the 0.5 seconds of unconsciousness. Oliva does have techniques like the Pac-Man and stuff. Jack Hanma doesn't really have any techniques. He has the uppercut and bite and shit like that, but not really anything of importance. And yeah, he has the Hanma bloodline, but he's never been able to activate the demon back. So that's definitely a huge setting factor backwards. And Oliva did kind of get wrecked by Sukune, but Sukune's no pushover himself. Definitely, I'd put Sukune in extremely strong at the very tippy top of the list. Sukune was able to take a hit from Yujiro and even not fall down, and that's a huge fucking impressive feat. Other guys are not taking that same shot. For example, when Hanayama took that shot, it was over. And yeah, it was over with Sukune, but he did really good. And when he fought against OP Baki, he was able to stay up against those shots. And that was the Baki that fought Yujiro. So I'm not knocking on Oliva for losing against Sukune. The fact that he was even able to fight at all and even able to land any damage, make any damage against Sukune is impressive in itself. So I hope what I'm saying is all making sense here. Because I'm just going off of what part I think they're in the series. But even if we talk about current Jack, then obviously he's going to go up in Grandmaster level. So we'll just make an exception and just say current Jack. Obviously he's going to go right up here. He did really good against Pickle, and he wanted to fight Musashi, but then he ended up fighting Mimtabe, and he did really good against him. And Mimtabe even admitted, "Hey, look, there's no way I'm going one-on-one against you." And that's nothing to laugh about, right? So this is my list. Again, it's just a personal list. Please go easy on me. I'm not a Baki expert. I just did this for fun. Hope y'all enjoy.